A severe car accident nearly claimed my life. Due to insufficient ambulances, medical personnel provided basic treatment while awaiting rescue. I exhausted all my strength to call Richard, who was on leave, to save me, but he responded coldly, "Can you stop using such tricks to make me see you? I'm very busy." I was taken to the emergency room and informed that there was a shortage of doctors. The hospital called Richard to return and assist with the rescue efforts. At that moment, he was at an intern's house performing surgery on a dog, delaying his return to the hospital until the next day with various excuses, by which time I had been transferred to another city for surgery and survived. 3 years later, I returned home to visit my father, who had suffered a cerebral hemorrhage, and encountered Richard at the hospital. Wearing a white coat, he sneered at me, finally willing to come back. "If you want to marry me, apologize to Lena first, and then I'll consider it," but I was already a mother of twins and no longer needed to plead for his hand in marriage. Upon learning of my father's hospitalization due to a cerebral hemorrhage, I hurriedly bought a plane ticket to return home, only to unexpectedly encounter Richard at work, exuding confidence in his white coat with a badge indicating his position as director. Seeing me weary from travel, he stopped me and said, "Anna, where have you been these past 2 years? Did you hide because I didn't marry you?" I hadn't expected Richard to have switched hospitals, let alone to the one where my father was admitted. Eager to visit my father and unwilling to engage with him, I said in a harsh tone, "Get out of my way, don't obstruct my important business." Never having heard me speak to him so sharply, Richard pulled his hand from his pocket, grabbed my arm, and said in an unpleasant tone, "I'm speaking to you politely, why are you still so disrespectful?" His grip on my hand was painful. I glared at him and said, "Are you sick?" Richard, looking at my reddened hand, was stunned for a few seconds before saying, "Sorry, Before he could finish, I took the nearby stairs to the 13th floor inpatient ward, where I saw that my father, thanks to early detection and timely rescue, could move his limbs upon waking, though they were still slightly numb, finally easing my anxious heart with a sigh of relief. My mother, worried about my father, hadn't slept for 2 days and 1 night, so I urged her to rest while I took over caregiving. At 7 p.m., as I was about to feed my father, Richard appeared at the door with fruit. He had removed his white coat and was in casual clothes. After setting down the fruit, his gaze fixed on my reddened hand, and he took safflower oil from his pocket, saying, "Anna, I'm sorry about this morning, I was a bit emotional, please apply this ointment first. If you had told me earlier about your father's hospitalization, I wouldn't have acted this way. You always leave without explanation, just like 2 years ago when you departed silently." Feigning sincerity, I rolled my eyes and knocked the ointment from his hand, saying coldly and distantly, "Please don't call my name, you laid hands on me, and that's why I offer so many excuses? I don't accept your apology. Leave with your fruit before I lose my temper." Seeing my unyielding stance, with neighboring patients casting odd glances at him, Richard's expression turned unpleasant. At that moment, his phone rang, and upon answering, his tone softened. "Bobby threw up again? I'll head back right away to take him to the hospital, you." He hurriedly left the ward while talking on the phone, his voice fading until I could no longer hear what he said. Bobby was Lena's pet dog. 2 years ago, I was in a car accident. With many victims unconscious, ambulances prioritized transporting the severely injured. As someone still conscious, I had to wait for the next round, but I felt as though my organs were shattered, dizzy and on the verge of death the next moment. The fear of death drove me to call Richard, who was on leave, hoping he'd save me, but when he answered, he assumed I was being unreasonable, fabricating a car accident to see him, and rejected my plea for help. Later, I learned from Lena's social media posts that while I was in the accident, Richard was performing orthopedic surgery on her pet dog, Bobby. In his eyes, his official girlfriend, was less important than his intern's dog. My mother and I alternated caring for my father, each taking a day. When I went to relieve her, I saw Lena in a white coat sitting by his bed, chatting and laughing. Noticing my father's 4 bottle was nearly empty, she volunteered, "Uncle, wait a moment, I'll get the fluid to replace it for you. My parents smiled and said, okay, thank you, doctor, but Lena's expression soured when she turned and saw me at the door. She smiled, stuck out her tongue, and said, Sister Anna, I heard you're back, so I came to check on you all. I remained silent, setting down the thermos with a grim face. My mother scolded me, child, this doctor is so friendly, taking time from her busy schedule to chat with us and encourage your father to move around. Why are you so cold to her? I pouted, reluctant to argue with my parents, and smiled. Yes, Mom's right. Let's not talk about that. Try the chicken soup I made myself from a hard-to-find free-range chicken. It's very nourishing. At that moment, Lena entered with the fluid, but as she was about to connect it, I stopped her. She said aggrievedly, What's wrong, Sister Anna? I'm changing the for Uncle. If you keep holding me, the blood might backflow. I snatched the fluid from her hand and pointed at the label. If you can't do a nurse's job, don't do it. Look at the name and bed number. Is this my father's? You didn't even verify it before changing the medication. Upon checking, Lena's face paled, and she said with a choked voice, I didn't mean to, I just wanted to change Uncle's for quickly. She cried in her white coat, making it seem as if I were bullying her. My parents, who had just defended her, fell silent, as no one feels good about a medication mix-up. Even the neighboring patients made sarcastic remarks, causing Lena to sob uncontrollably, bowing to me and apologizing. Woo-woo, Sister Anna, I'm sorry, I didn't know my good intentions could nearly cause a grave mistake. It's all my fault. At that moment, a roar came from the door, What are you doing? And the next second, Richard shoved me hard, causing my side to hit the bed rail. The car accident left me without a spleen and with multiple fractures, now reinforced with steel plates. That impact struck my injured area, making me break out in a cold sweat and see stars. Richard hugged Lena and berated me. Anna, if you have any issues or grudges, come to me, but you can't bully Lena. She's just a resident doctor. Can't you patients show a little more understanding? If you keep harassing young doctors, who will dare to treat you in the future? Lena, looking aggrieved, buried herself in Richard's arms and sobbed, Brother Richard, I'm fine. Since no one likes me as a doctor, I might as well resign to the director. Woo-woo-woo, prompting Richard to angrily order me. Anna, apologize. You made Lena cry. These two treated the workplace like a game, now disregarding my parents' presence to treat me this way. His bias toward Lena no longer affects me, nor does it hurt my heart. Why should I apologize? I went straight to the doctor's office to file a complaint against Lena for her lack of diligence, careless checking, and crying in front of patients. Coincidentally, hospital leadership was conducting an inspection and found my complaint, immediately ordering Lena to go home for reflection and write a self-criticism, barring her from work during this period. Even Richard, the top surgeon, was summoned by the dean for a talk. That evening, my husband told me he had arrived with the twins, but I asked him not to bring them yet, to rest first before visiting their grandparents. He replied, yes, I'll listen to my wife, but I'm passing by your hospital to buy snacks for Bella. Can I come for a hug? Poor me, I've missed my wife after days apart, though he didn't even draft his lie. The hospital was far from their place, not on the way at all. Still, I missed him too. Waiting downstairs, I saw him step out of the car and joyfully rushed into his arms. The fresh scent of his shower gel calmed me, and I whispered in his ear, Honey, I missed you too, to which he replied, I missed you too. You've worked hard. Wife Ben and Bella are asleep. I need to go back, or they'll cry if they don't see me, and the nanny can't manage alone. This brief warmth dispelling much of my day's frustration. I bid farewell to my husband, standing by the roadside watching his car until the taillights vanished, then picked up the pancake he'd bought me to eat. Suddenly, someone appeared behind me, startling me so much that the pancake fell from my mouth. He patted my shoulder and asked, Who was that just now? Why were you smiling at him? Richard questioned me with a grim face, his tone commanding, his fingers tightening on my shoulder as he spoke. Feeling the pain, I stabbed his arm with a bamboo skewer and snapped, Let go, you're hurting me. After wincing in pain, Richard didn't release me but pressed closer, forcing me to the flower bed until I sat on the tiled edge. I tried to stand and leave, but Richard held me down, pressing, "You haven't answered my question. Who was that man, and what's your relationship with him?" I found him absurd, loving Lena yet prying into my private life. Unwilling to prolong the exchange, I answered truthfully, "He's my husband, legally married on the certificate I've answered you. Can you let go now?" Yet my response only intensified Richard's reaction. He pinched my chin, forcing me to look into his eyes as he spoke. "Anna, you don't need to resort to such tactics to force me to marry you. Don't think I don't know you deliberately had your sick father admitted to my hospital and staged this encounter with another man after work. Honestly, it's unsettling me. If you want me to marry you, just agree to one condition, and we'll get the certificate immediately. Apologize to Lena and withdraw your complaint. Don't you realize it might cost her job?" It always circles back to Lena. 2 years ago, I was indeed desperate to marry because, in my 30s, delaying marriage and childbirth might complicate conception. I deeply wanted and loved children, but Richard kept postponing, citing his career not yet being stable, though I had waited 7 years, from his residency to his job. A mocking smile crossed my lips as I sized Richard up. He no longer resembled his youthful, handsome self, now marked by wrinkles and dark circles. I said, "Richard, when did I beg you to marry me? If you want to wed, go to your student Lena. She'd likely be eager to marry you." Stunned that I'd say such a thing, he gritted his teeth and said, "Anna, do you even know what you're saying?" Suddenly, a surprised female voice came from behind. "Richard, what are you doing?" Recognizing Lena's voice, Richard sprang away from me, keeping a meter's distance. Fearing association with me might cause Lena to misunderstand, I snorted and rolled my eyes. He spoke gently to her. "It's nothing. Anna's just pestering me. Good thing you're here. Didn't you mention wanting to try on wedding dresses? I'll take you tomorrow." As he spoke, his eyes deliberately darted to my face, seeking a reaction, but regrettably, there was none. As if to spite me, he posted about accompanying Lena to try on wedding dresses on Facebook, with his figure appearing in her shares too. Passing the nurse station, I overheard them discussing, "Did you see? Surgeon Richard went with Lena to try on wedding dresses. Are they really getting married? Isn't it just a matter of time? Who in the hospital doesn't know about them? It's been quiet for 2 years, but now seems the right moment." Their marriage meant nothing to me. It wasn't my concern. My husband said Ben and Bella would visit Grandpa that afternoon, so I waited in the ward. Their arrival filled the room with joyful laughter, easing my parents' worried expressions considerably. That afternoon, while changing Bella's diaper, a lively voice came from the door. "Wow, whose kids are these? So cute and adorable." Hearing Lena's voice, I turned irritably, my gaze landing on Richard's sullen face. Ignoring him, I walked over and took the child from Lena's arms, smiling. "These are my children. Your white coat makes it inconvenient to hold them." I glanced at Lena with a faint smile, surprised she could return to work in just a few hours. Her backing must be quite strong. In an unnoticed corner, Richard swayed and nearly fell when he heard me say the children were mine, his panic rising, his discomposure unnoticed even by himself. Unwilling to accept it, he said, "Where did you adopt these twins from? I knew you liked raising kids, but I didn't expect you to adopt 2 at once." His words drew strange looks from me and those nearby. My mother answered for me, her tone mildly angry. "How can you say that about my grandchildren? These 2 were carried by my daughter for 10 months, born via cesarean after a brush with death. Who starts by claiming they're not hers?" A fellow patient adored my children. We'd just discussed my cesarean process, including scar ointment since she too was a cesarean mother, so when she heard Richard's remark, she defended me angrily. "You 2 never bring anything good when you come. You don't seem to be in charge of our ward. Why do you keep bullying this young woman all day? Are you that idle at work?" Lena, chastised, resorted to her coy act. "Brother Richard, I just wanted to apologize. Look at them." Unexpectedly, Richard shouted at me, "Anna, when did I permit you to have twins? Why did you give birth to my children without informing me? Now they're here, and you won't let me acknowledge them. On what grounds?" You've kept them from their father for 2 years, denying them paternal love, making their childhood unfortunate. Is this how a mother acts? I stared at Richard in disbelief, wondering about his thought process. I smiled and said, Richard, if I recall correctly, you hadn't touched me for 6 months before my accident. Where would your children come from? Stunned, he asked, accident? What accident? He seemed to have completely forgotten it. I said coldly, while you were performing orthopedic surgery on Lena's dog that day, I was in a major car accident, nearly losing my life. Had you answered my call and come then, I wouldn't have lost my spleen and kidney. If you hadn't made excuses when the hospital called you back and arrived earlier, I wouldn't have been comatose for 3 days and nights, suffering cardiac arrest, requiring a transfer and 3 blood transfusions to survive. Hearing this, my father sat up excitedly, saying, Daughter, this man is that heartless ex-boyfriend of yours? Back then, Richard and I were together but not yet at the stage of confirming marriage, so my parents didn't know who he was, only that I had a boyfriend. Now realizing it was Richard before them, my typically cheerful parents' faces darkened. My mother drove them out. We don't welcome you too. You're not responsible for my husband. We need rest, so don't disturb us. That day, we completed discharge procedures. Staying with Richard and Lena around was unbearable, and later, a fellow patient told me Richard returned after we left. Upon learning of our discharge, he caused a scene in the ward, grabbing a nurse to demand why we were allowed to leave. He stood in the corridor, ignoring everyone's stares, calling me repeatedly, but I had changed my phone number after leaving. My husband, also a surgeon, surpasses Richard vastly in ethics and skill. It was he who saved my life. Many hospital leaders, aware of my husband's return, invited him to discuss techniques upon arrival. Initially reluctant due to childcare, he eventually had to attend, extending our stay with the children. My father's condition has improved, allowing normal walking, and my mother takes him out daily. Watching the kids helps him forget his illness, lifting his spirits, so I left them with my parents, assisted by the nanny. Today, my husband gave a lecture at the hospital, and I went as an audience member. Seeing him shine on stage filled me with pride, especially when he winked at me during a pause. This made everyone around me smile at me, leaving me slightly embarrassed but inwardly delighted. My husband provides a strong sense of security, unlike with Richard, who forbade me from visiting his workplace during overtime. Lena, however, was different. Among his interns, she was special, never assigned hard tasks, which went to others, while easy ones were hers. I caught this several times, argued, and was harshly scolded by Richard each time. He called me jealous and embarrassing, but my husband introduces me to everyone, praising me as an amazing mother and wife whether alone or in public, affirming me and giving my life meaning. As I listened attentively to my husband's lecture, urgent footsteps approached. A doctor in a white coat addressed the dean before me. Dean, there's an emergency, a patient with severe open trauma in the ER. We can't locate the bleeding point, blood reserves are low, and Dr. Richard can't handle it if we delay. He might not survive. This patient's special, someone important who must live. The dean swiftly decided, interrupting my husband's lecture to request his help with the rescue. We went together, finding all department directors present, initiating a critical 999 rescue mode. When Richard was wheeled out, his surgical gown blood-soaked, he saw my husband and me standing before him. He abruptly raged at the dean. I said, he can't be saved. Can this outsider doctor really save that dying patient? Lena, tears welling, added anxiously, yes, Dean, Richard's the top surgeon in our department. Even the city, his skills are unmatched. We don't even know this person's name. How can he suddenly take lead? Who's responsible if something goes wrong? The dean glared. Since when does a resident question my decisions? Silencing Lena in fear. My husband understood the source of Richard's hostility but harbored his own resentment, dismissing Lena's objections. Before a life, all else was trivial. He quickly donned his surgical gown without further words. He merely tossed a remark at Richard. Don't overestimate yourself daily. There are always greater talents beyond. What you can't do, others might. With that, I watched him enter the operating room, followed by everyone, including Richard. 5 hours later, they emerged from surgery. I spotted my husband immediately, and as I approached, he leaned on my shoulder, exhausted, saying, "My wife's embrace recharges me no matter how tired, it revives me." I patted his shoulder gently as the dean approached, smiling. Thank goodness Dr. Ethan was here today, or this surgery would have been tough. A miracle, finding such an elusive bleeding point, truly young and talented. I noticed Richard standing nearby, his face dark with defeat, though his eyes betrayed unwillingness. During Richard's internship, his mentor noted his steady hands, ideal for surgery. Even his teacher praised his early operations. All lauded his potential, fostering his belief in his unique, irreplaceable status. Over years at the hospital, he succeeded in countless challenging surgeries, giving him the audacity to delay when called back. Yet, 3 years on, his skills remain stagnant. With society advancing rapidly, new technologies have transformed traditional methods, aiding faster diagnosis of patient conditions. This time, my husband located the bleeding point swiftly, not just due to skill, but his self-developed reflection tracking system, which rapidly identifies dynamic origins. Richard's arrogance, declaring a patient unsalvageable, began earning him peers' disdain. People often grumbled privately, "So young and brash, claiming a patient with a breath left can't be saved. If your skills fall short, don't overreach." I've disliked him for ages. He's just steady-handed and slightly skilled. Countless others outshine him. This might be the end of Richard Smith. As doctors, the key is to fight death for every breath a patient has. How does he not grasp this? I heard Dr. Ethan's wife was his ex. 3 years ago, during her accident, she begged Richard for help, but he chose to operate on our resident Lena's dog instead. His character was flawed from the start. Now, Richard and Lena's reputations in the hospital are souring. Lena's residency mentor marked her unqualified, expelling her from the department. Over the years, Lena, leveraging her status as Richard's rumored girlfriend, shirked work across departments, idling until clock-out time. At residency's end, she was dubbed an outstanding employee, infuriating peers who dared not speak out. When Richard faltered this time, they all filed reports, and the mentor swiftly turned impartial. My husband developed this tracking system because, during my accident's massive bleeding, he nearly failed to find the source, persisting until he did. Later, I bled heavily again during the twins' cesarean. Since then, he researched a technology to locate bleeding points. Recently, surgical directors from major hospitals have consulted him, eager to adopt it in their operating rooms. Bored, I took the twins for a walk and encountered Richard, his face unshaven, eyes bloodshot, lips chapped, likely sleepless for days. Frowning, I maneuvered the stroller around him, but he grabbed it. I said, "What are you doing? Speak if you must, don't touch." In a hoarse voice, Richard said, "Anna, you've won, I'll marry you. We can get the certificate today. You've achieved your goal," and forced my surrender. I shook off his hand and cursed, "Are you insane? I have a husband and kids. When did I say I'd marry you? Have you lost your mind?" Unexpectedly, Richard raged, shoving the stroller aside and pinning my shoulders, attempting to force a kiss. "Why not marry? Didn't you kneel and beg me back then? I told you to wait. Why didn't you? Now the time's here. Why stand with another man, bringing kids to taunt me and ruin my career? Now I agree to marry you. Don't refuse," he said as the children cried in fear. In desperation, I twisted his ear, causing pain, then punched his nose, saying coldly, "Go crazy again, and I'll send you to a mental hospital." Ignoring his bleeding nose, he knelt before me in tears, pleading, "Anna, I truly love you. Don't reject me, please. Do you know how it hurts to see you hug another man, or how jealous I am watching you smile at those kids? Why punish me? I know hanging up your call was my fault. It was Lena's seduction. I'll cut ties with her and be with you. Can't you do the same with irrelevant people so we can start anew?" He pulled a DR diamond ring from his pocket, saying, "Anna, these rings bear our English names. Today I propose. You can't refuse. I booked the dress for you to try now, and the wedding venue's ready anytime." But I stepped around him, comforting my children. Enraged, Richard roared insanely, "Why are you ignoring me? I said marry me, didn't you hear? I tried to leave with the kids, but Richard roughly snatched them from me, and I feared they'd fall. Forced to let go, I softened my voice. Richard, don't get agitated, I'll agree to anything, just don't harm the children. My heart hung with the children, uncertain if Richard's next move would hurt them, tears streaming from my anxiety. He giggled while holding them. Any condition? Then right now, to the Civil Affairs Bureau for the certificate, and I agreed instantly. Okay, I'll go, just don't hurt them. But as their cries grew, I couldn't take them back. We got into a taxi. At the Civil Affairs Bureau, the staff told Richard, Sir, sorry, this lady is married, she must bring her husband for a divorce before you can register. Even then, Richard doubted my marriage, but the truth was evident. Pain crossed his face as he asked, Anna, are you really married, not deceiving me? I dared not speak rashly with the children still in his grasp, calming him as the staff intervened to assist. Fortunately, I'd asked the taxi driver to call 911. As Richard ranted, police swiftly subdued him, rescuing the children into my arms. Touching the children nearly broke my heart. They bore strangulation bruises. I told the police, this man kidnapped my kids, causing us mental distress. I won't accept mediation. Richard was detained for 10 days. After learning of my ordeal, my husband publicly stated that without severe punishment for Richard, he'd cease hospital collaboration post-release. Richard was fired, his license revoked due to past misconduct exposure. My husband and I took my parents to settle and work in another province. Later, I heard Lena was arrested, having worked as a plastic surgeon at a shady hospital. Due to improper procedure, she caused a patient's death on the operating table, fleeing the room with the scalpel instead of seeking immediate rescue. By the time the family found the patient, it was a cold corpse. Seeking justice, they sued the hospital and reported Lena to the police. Eventually, Lena was found at Richard's door, begging for his help. He secretly called the police, saying, because of you, Anna left me forever, you deserve to die. Furious, Lena retorted, you think you're so devoted? I know you wanted both, enjoying me while clinging to your true love. You pushed her away, what's that got to do with me? Hearing sirens, Lena realized Richard had called the police. In desperation, she grabbed a stone and smashed it repeatedly on his groin while he was distracted, causing him to collapse in pain with a sound like breaking eggs. Though police rushed Richard to the hospital, his corpora cavernosa were irreparably damaged, rendering him impotent. Lena received a life sentence. After a follow-up, my father showed no recurrence risk. He quit smoking and drinking, declined social drinking events, and began a relaxed life caring for the kids and shopping, finally easing my heart. Richard's perspective. I couldn't accept my impotence. Anna and I had planned for kids, but my career was peaking, and the dean promised a promotion and raise with a few more years' effort. Yet Anna kept nagging me then, always about marriage and kids. I wanted that too, but prioritized my career, so I punished her. I let the intern get close, knowing her every move was intentional to irk Anna, show her my appeal, and warn her I'd leave if pushed, making her wait obediently. She did quiet down for a while, pleasing me, and I planned to discuss marriage later. I never imagined that call was real. She truly had an accident. Unaware then, she vanished, unreachable by phone, and I assumed she'd stormed off in anger, betting she'd return on her own. 3 years later, a major hospital recruited me, granting me a director's role. With a successful career, I could marry and have kids. I saw Anna, but she ignored me with a harsh attitude, accompanied by another man and twins. I thought it was all a ploy to provoke me, and it infuriated me. Forcing her to the Civil Affairs Bureau, I saw her marriage certificate and realized I'd truly lost her. Unresigned, I inquired everywhere about her new city, stalking her daily life like a voyeur. That day, I followed Anna as usual, taking the twins to kindergarten. When she exited, she walked straight toward me, and I hid in fear. Anna called out, "Don't hide, I've noticed you following me for ages." Caught, I panicked, eyes darting, fingers nervously tugging my clothes, then touching my hair. Stammering, "Anna, I was just passing by." She cut me off sternly. "Richard, you've trailed me for years. I thought you'd give up, but now, while I'm back, you sneakily give my kids candy at kindergarten. What do you want?" Knowing she misunderstood, I waved my hands. "Anna, I just wanted to see the kids, nothing more," but she replied, "I don't care what you think. Stay away from my children, or I'll call the police." Her merciless words jolted my heart, pain coursing through me. Wounded, I asked, "Anna, can we never return to the past? I miss you so much and want to connect with your kids since I may never be a father." Saying this, Anna grew instantly wary. I wanted to say more, but her husband stepped forward to block me. Holding Anna protectively before me, he warned, "I advise you to stay away from my wife, or I'll take action." After that day, I lost all trace of Anna and even Ethan's work updates. They vanished like 3 years ago when Anna disappeared abruptly. I went mad searching for Anna, wandering and asking around fruitlessly. I slept under bridges, my phone and wallet stolen by vagrants. Fighting an old lady for cardboard, she beat me, scratching my face. Furious, I followed her to reclaim my chosen peace. Unexpectedly, her gambler son mistook me for a thief, stabbing my stomach at night. My stomach pierced. I could only take nutritional fluids, but penniless, I ate trash, dying of acute infection one night without digestion.